you. Apologies for absence.
Apologies received from councillors Dan, Osborne and Barrett.
I think the rest of them. Now, members' interests. Disclosable interests. No? Don't forget you can do so if you feel you have one when the appropriate application comes up. Party whipping arrangements.
No.
To members of the Councillor Obi's first.
For the first application on Naseby, to gather intelligence, not to take side, I spoke to the applicant when I was just elected, and also I spoke with the chairman of the parish.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
No,
You
thank you.
declared it anyway. Okay. Party whipping arrangements, members of the public. No political party or group of people get together to vote one particular way. It never has been, and I hope never will be. Right. Several bits of housekeeping. First of all, if the fire alarm rings, it will be it won't be a test. So please go from the building either the way you came in or out through the external steps there. Can you please switch your mobile devices to silent, please? Because we've got an unwritten rule. You pay £5 or £10 to the chairman if they go off. Depends how much noise they make. The proceedings are being recorded. The speakers will have 3 minutes. After that you'll hear a tone and I'll ask you to wind up. If you don't wind up, you'll be politely told to wind up. In the nicest possible way, of course. I'm asking you not to clap, cheer, boo or hiss or anything on any speakers. During the evening you'll see officers talking, perhaps while you're talking, and you'll think, that's bad manners, or people on this top table will be. They're trying to get an answer for what you're saying so that at the end of what you're saying they'll have an answer ready and the meeting can continue. So it looks like bad manners, but it isn't. It's to make the meeting flow easier. Next, an update on performance, not much different from the last time. Members, 82%, so we're exceeding the 40% target of applications in time. The other one, we can still afford to lose the same number. Well, we can't because there's one less, but we don't know officially about that one yet. And something even worse to tell you, I've got to read this one out because it takes a little while. This is note on 5-year land supply issues. In April this year, the council published its 5-year land supply report with a base date of 1st of April 2014. This report identified a 5.2-year supply of housing land. The council has recently received an inspector's report in respect of an appeal for a housing scheme for land at Gilsborough Road, West Haddon. The inspector concluded that the council was not able to demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing land. There are 3 elements of the inspector's lecture which are of note. Number 1, he accepts the council's position on windfall sites. This will hopefully now establish some degree of certainty on this matter, as it has been the subject of varying views from inspectors over recent months, which we have sought to address. Number 2, he has taken the view that the housing requirements should be calculated using the annual requirement set out in the objectively assessed housing needs assessment. This amounts to 388 dwellings per annum, plus the shortfall in delivery from 2011 to 2014, which was 657. Now that totals 2,985 units, when the required 20% buffer is included. This is slightly higher than the requirement using the trajectory for the core strategy, which gives the requirement of 2,912 dwellings. The inspector's approach is not consistent with the approach set out in the core strategy, nor with the approach agreed by the council at its meeting in July. Number 3, the inspector queries the rate of delivery on just 2 sites in the Housing Land Availability Report, namely the proposed allocation to the north east of Daventry and land off Barbie Road in Daventry. The inspector, Badby Road, I beg your pardon. It's written Barbie Road, but it is Badby Road. The inspector takes the view that the council has been overly optimistic about delivery, but does not give any indication of what the level of development he thinks would be appropriate. He concludes that the requirement of 2,985 is unlikely to be achieved, although he accepts that ultimately the level of delivery may be close to it. Taking account of the inspector's decision, my advice is that we accept the position that we do not have a 5-year land supply. I would also advise that we should not issue a revised housing land availability report until after we hear from the inspector concerning the Fardham Road Woodford appeal, in case that this raises any other issues that needs to be considered. That's from Richard Wood, your local strategy manager. So the short version is we haven't got what we thought we might have had. I'm afraid that bit's not open to debate. That's just to tell you what's happening. The next part is, and we go to the first planning application, which is Naisby, and it's 0403. Keith?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As you see, the site is on the edge of Naisby. There are 2 elements to this. It's an unusual application in that it's a hybrid application, where part of the application is a detailed planning application, and that is for the factory part of it, where they're proposing to build a new factory. And the other part of the application is an outline application for the residential development, with all matters reserved apart from the access points. And the rationale behind it is the proceeds from the residential development finance the building of the new factory. The proposal also is that once the factory is built, the original premises that are owned by occupied by Roma will be available for renting to small businesses. It'll be refurbished and available for small businesses to go in there. So those are the 2 main elements of the proposal. As you'll see from the report, it goes through the various objections that have been received and the various comments from the statutory consultees, and ends up with our conclusion that although it's contrary to policy, having had regard to the NPPF and obviously the latest news which you just heard from the chairman about the fact we do not have a 5-year housing land supply, that any harm that is caused by the development is outweighed by the need to deal with the housing shortfall. And as we've already said, in any event, we don't think it is that particularly harmful. We don't feel it is particularly important open space, although we do accept it lies outside the confines of the village. But given that we have the benefits of the new factory, hopefully retaining the jobs within the village where they already are, and possibly allowing some people to live in the new houses who might work there in the future as well, we think that outweighs any potential harm. You'll see from the late representations an issue was raised about Catton Cottage, if that's the correct pronunciation, which is a listed building which is near the site, and the fact that the cracks had appeared in the front wall of the building and it was being held up. It seems from investigation that those cracks have been there for quite some time, and the scaffolding's been there for quite some time, at least a few years. That's the actual cottage, that's it now. You can just see the scaffolding, and there is a close-up picture, there you go, from the parish council of the situation. Concerns are expressed that may result in that the development may result in further damage, but it's been looked at today by the conservation officer who's been out there, inspected the premises and spoken to the owner-occupier, and she's basically said there are some major structural issues, principally relating to a failed roof structure, which is being propped internally by a fabulously Heath Robinson process, as she put it. There is significant movement on the outside face 2, which is what you can see behind the scaffold on the photos. She thinks urgent works are needed to make the roof safe to prevent collapse. The owner is aware that he needs to do something but wasn't sure where to start, so she's put him in touch with some specialist structural engineers to get the ball rolling on that one. But then, I think most importantly, she says, although this does need addressing urgently, she does not think it will be exacerbated by the development proposal. So she's not really concerned it will have any further impact on the heritage asset from a structural point. But she does go on to say, whilst I was on site, I also had a look at the outbuildings in the cases of the listed building. They're not in particularly good condition, which is probably down to old age rather than anything else. And because she's concerned that there might be potential for them to be affected by the construction operation, because they are a lot nearer to the boundary than the actual house itself, she suggested a more detailed condition on the construction method for the road to go in to ensure the protection of those outbuildings and their foundations. And I understand the case officers discussed that with the applicant's agent today, and they're happy enough with that. So subject to the recommendation, as you've seen in the report there, and the additional condition on that road, we're recommending approval, Chairman, subject to section 106.
Thank you, Keith. We have 3 speakers. Mrs. Smith, who is against the application. Okay, you've got 3 minutes.
Do I stand up?
Sorry?
Do I stand up?
You can stand up and sit down, whatever you want.
Okay,
Very informal.
my name's Hannah Smith. I live at the Quays in High Street, Naseby, with my family, and we strongly object to the application. Our property is directly affected by the proposed development as it borders the field in question. The proposed factory will be sited right at the end of our garden, and what is currently agricultural greenfield land bordering residential property will become the site of an industrial building. In respect to the factory development, I'm particularly concerned with the following. We'll suffer loss of light and overshadowing to the rear of our property. There will be a negative visual impact from our property due to the erection of a 6-foot-high fence and the factory buildings themselves. There will be disturbance from noise, from the operation of the factory machinery, and from delivery vehicles at potentially all hours of the day or night. The existing factory is currently in use both during the evenings and at weekends. If the bill was to go ahead, could there please be some sort of time curfew on operation of the factory to minimise antisocial noise pollution? We also have concerns over the nature of the hard standing. If it's gravel, the noise will be even greater, so could there also be some stipulation on the hard standing? We're very concerned at the total loss of privacy to our garden. As you can imagine, the only living things seen at the moment are the sheep, and there's going to be a number of delivery drivers, factory workers, what have you, at the end of our garden. We've got 3 children, and we are concerned with the increased levels of emissions that will affect our property, coming from the lorries which will be turning behind our garden, and the increased traffic flow to the front. There will be an increase in number of lorries turning from High Street into the factory, and this is a residential street, and it's just really not fit. It's narrow. There are pavers on one side. It's not fit for big lorries turning, and there are a really large number of school children walk down that road every day, and they're going to have to navigate an increased number of articulated lorries, delivery vans. It's worrying. As I understand it, Naseby has an infill-only status, and I can't see the justification for building an industrial unit outside the village boundary next to a residential property. I also can't agree with the argument that by resiting the factory, the economic status of the village will be enhanced or even sustained. The plans submitted do not show a proposed increase in staffing levels, so there will be no opportunities for new jobs. Furthermore, of the staff currently employed by Roma Leather, less than 10% live in the village. In relation to the development as a whole, I've got the following objections. As previously stated, the development's outside the village boundary. There's a public footpath going across the field. I know you say that it's not an important field, it's a really important field to the villagers, because the public footpath goes right through it, and it's used every day by dog walkers, children. We've had our fair share of housing. I think another 20 really is pushing the boundaries of overdevelopment in a small village. The primary school is full. How can we assimilate more pupils without detrimental effect to the children already there? Services such as broadband and water. Yeah, okay, so just in conclusion, I'm struggling to see any benefits of this development to the village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where it is your house?
Yeah, sure. This is our house. So here is where the factory is going to be. Right, this is our fence. You saw a picture of our chickens just there. It's a lovely rural area and it's going to have a great big industrial building.
Thank you.
Not good. Thank you.
Mr. Westway, the Parish Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Parish Council consider this application and strongly object to the scale and industrialisation of greenfield space for both proposals. The planning officer defines this as a small-scale development, but an increase in size of the village by 8% in one development is not small to a rural village. Yesterday we inquired to the Heritage Officer if they were aware that the Grade 2 listed cottage is in danger of collapse on its southern elevation wall, which is only a few metres from the proposed articulated lorry access to this site. The wall is supported by braced scaffolding, which is all that prevents the house collapsing. This has been omitted in both Heritage or Planning Officer's reports, and further development of heavy traffic will cause substantial harm to one of the few heritage assets in the village. The two photos on display show the level of damage and deterioration that current industrial access has caused since 1971. The cottages surrounding us will be overwhelmed on two sides by factories which can do nothing but further detract or overshadow its setting. Despite the officer's report, this is a 17th century cottage with no foundations, and it has deteriorated substantially since the industrial estate was built 30 years ago. It's obvious that more heavy industrial traffic will put the building at significant risk. The PC are concerned that our primary school children from nearly 50 properties will be expected to run the gauntlet of articulated lorries across this entrance, or via a busy road junction where there's no footpath at all. There's no reasonable safe alternative route. The industrial estate should not be designed so as to isolate housing from the village. We believe that the applicants have designed the site inside out, and the industrial element should not be between the domestic housing and the rest of the community. There are opportunities to extend the current factory, redesign the development as a whole, or move the factory to industrial units that are already being used by RLC on the Cotswood Road outside the village. Excepting the director's own family, only 4 out of RLC's 58 employees reside in the village. It's wholly wrong to suggest that RLC's presence in the village is preserving the local economy or creating sustainable employment opportunities. It could be argued legitimately that if RLC left to a more suitable industrial estate, the applicants will then have 4 small business units to let, which could create more sustainable employment for the village and less traffic movements for employees and commercial traffic. Consequently, we do not agree that RLC's departure will be detrimental to the village economy. Low-cost housing in the village added to this proposal won't support the factory by encouraging staff to relocate. The lowest house price in the village is $230,000 for a mid-terrace property, so it's unlikely that factory staff could relocate to the village. Naseby has grown by 100 properties in the last 18 years. This represents an unsustainable growth of 35% in that time. Our mains water, storm drainage, sewage systems, school and community facilities have not been upgraded. The primary school is now turning away our local children, and the Chair of Governors, who is with us tonight if anybody wishes to ask questions, has advised us that the purchase of these properties will be unable to secure places for their children. The street used for access to the school resembles a car park at peak times, not least because of infill development, and it's now suggested they run the gauntlet of lorries and industrial traffic. The PC accept DDC need more housing, but sites that include enlarging industrial development between it and the village is not safe or acceptable planning. This proposal encloses industry within the village. Surely a more thoughtful application would be to place the industrial site and access outside domestic housing on the outskirts of the village, and the houses in the heart of it for the safety of our children.
Could you wind up, please?
Yes, thank you. More thoughtful and small-scale development would preserve our public footpath, listed buildings and the privacy of residential neighbours. The applicants already own suitable land opposite the site next to warehousing they already rent to RLC, which would represent a far more suitable site for an industrial factory of this scale.
Could you stop now then, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, the agent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, members. My name is Paul Johnson, and I represent the joint applicants, Roma Leather Collection, the Westaway family, and Francis Jackson Homes. The application before you tonight has been in development for many years. It seeks planning permission for a purpose-built factory, workshop, and office facility for Roma Leather Collection, a local business which has been in Naseby for well over 30 years. Roma Leather provide valuable local employment opportunities, which in turn benefit and support the retention of other services in the village. As an example of a successful village-based employer within Daventry district, Roma Leather's track record is exemplary. The current Roma Leather buildings are, however, preventing growth and limiting the ability of their business to remain competitive. Faced with potentially having to leave Naseby or even the district, in conjunction with the landowners, the application proposals have been before you have been developed. These will allow Roma Leather to remain in Naseby, develop the business and potentially take on more staff, or within a brand new purpose-built building that's been designed to be fit for purpose from the outset. The proposed housing provides the enabling development to fund the build. This will be delivered by Francis Jackson Homes, a high-quality local house builder with a successful track record in the village. Without the housing element, the new factory cannot be funded. Members, I'm aware you hear a great deal about sustainable development. This application, however, genuinely does represent mixed-use sustainable development. It will support the retention and enhancement of the job and business opportunities of a successful and well-respected local company with strong local links. It will free up the existing small business units vacated by Roma Leather, providing additional rural employment opportunities. It will provide a modest amount of much-needed housing within the district to facilitate the funding and delivery of the commercial element. This is especially important in light of the 5-year housing land supply shortfall noted by the planning inspector in their decision on the West Hampton Hill only last week. It will provide 30% of the houses as affordable housing to meet local needs. It will provide on-site open space and be of a very high quality. Further, Section 106 contributions will be made to enhance the local bus service, support local schools and the local children's play facilities. Matters relating to water pressure raised by the Parish Council will of course be addressed with Anglian Water as the relevant statutory body, but are not a material planning consideration. Similarly, matters relating to pre-existing conditions of adjacent listed building, notwithstanding the lack of objection from the Conservation Officer and indeed the residents of said property, are also a civil matter. As such, there are no technical objections to the application. Members will have already seen the very detailed report prepared by your professional officers and the recommendation of approval contained therein. Your officer and estate surveyor support the justification for the development as presented to you. Most critically, your professional planning officer notes that, irrespective of the justification for the proposal, all aspects of the development stand up to scrutiny in planning terms on their own merit, having full and proper regard to the NPPF. As such, given this position and the very clear demonstrable benefits of this proposal, we therefore respectfully ask members to support local employment, high quality housing and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Johnson. Right, members, local members. Is it ladies first or man
Yes,
first?
it will be first.
Councillor Irving Swift.
Well,
You didn't need to stand up.
well, I am.
I'm-
Suddenly I feel like I need
Okay.
to stand up, sorry, because it's quite a complex application. And we have heard the bad news you just tell us about land supply. So I know that for all of us tonight, it will be very difficult. And if we are minded to refuse a planning application, we have to do it with all the might we can find in order that we could fight if it's an appeal. So we are in a position that if that application in front of us, which is outside of the confines of the village, which is contrary to our policy, we are deciding to refuse. But I will, before I make my proposal, I would like to in any case, to hear what other councillors have to say. I think it was a great shame and a missed opportunity because you have heard two sides of the argument in front of you. You have heard the parish and you have the agent for the applicant. Nobody in this day and age will disagree that when you have local employment is great for a village. And certainly Naseby is in a position that they like to have industry. Now a lot of people in Naseby, if they have broadband, will work at home. So to start with a good broadband, it might have much more local employment in Naseby. Naseby is a village, as you have heard, that has grown and every little pocket has been filled. I have walked during 2 elections this village and if you look at their village design statement, the village design statement that they wrote in 2008, So it's a very detailed village design statement, and they show what is great in their parish and also what they like. And unfortunately, a lot of the development are on cul-de-sac, and it's not. It does detract for a village because people go in and out and are not part of the village. They also have a school that cannot be expanded. If you go to Naseby, you will not be able to put even a mobile classroom. And NCC says that the school is at full potential. So if you are minded to approve that development, the new children will have to bus somewhere. And somewhere, it's Gainsborough, Medwell, or Clipston, which is a long way away. But more to the fact, we have a public footpath in the middle. This public footpath, Naseby, for those, I mean, I feel a bit odd, I am French, but I will tell you, if the battles of Naseby would have, the Battle of Naseby decided what we are today, if we will not have the same outcome of the Battle of Naseby, you will be a republic like in France. So Naseby is very important. It's not used enough in our, when we promote Daventry District Council. Television has been in Naseby. The parish would like to have a museum in Naseby about the Battle of Naseby. And that footpath is a footpath that was taken by the army when they went to the Battle of Naseby. So now, for 20 houses, that footpath will be lost forever. It sounds ridiculous, but that is history. So on top of that, you have that to consider. And moving a footpath is not a mean feat, because when I was in Welford, I can tell you it went to appeal, and it was not as important. That footpath wasn't as important as it footpathing it. So all in all, I think the village would like Roma to stay in. Whereas the village, and I am uncomfortable, is that we have a planning application. One is for the outline of 20 houses, and one is an application fully for the factory. And if the factory is successful, if you look into your paper, they will have, the agreement they have with the owner is just for 10 years. And they have made publicly because they did engage with, or some way, with the village. They say that they have no certainty about the future if they will stay in Naseby or not. Also, my concern, if you read the report about the transport, their transport segment for sustainability, because the people who work in Roma live in 10 miles, 20 miles, or even Kettering. And in the sustainability transport report, it's about cycling. Well, I'm sorry, in our little lane, you cannot cycle every day back and forth from work for 10, 20 miles when it is. So I am uncomfortable with that application, not because I am against no development, but it's outside of the confines of the village. And I think with working more closely with the parish, another solution could have been, it was a lost opportunity. And finally, I will say that it's outside of the confines of the village, and that is against our policy, regardless of the land supply or not. So I am looking for all the councillors to let me know how they feel about that application before I make a proposal. Thank you.
You're not making a proposition at the moment?
No, I will like to make a proposal.
I'll just warn you that you risk somebody else making a proposition.
Well, in that case, I would like to make a proposal.
If somebody else makes a proposition, you won't be able to make yours.
Yes. So
okay.
Would you like me to make my proposal, or
not me? It's up to you.
Well, unfortunately, and with a heavy heart, because I do find that Roma has been. I find it very difficult on planning ground to justify that if the houses are not built, a factory with a successful business cannot be built, because you are talking a factory of 1 million. They have 3 million turnover. I'm sure the bank will have helped them. So I have a problem with the reasoning of why we need the housing to build the factory. So therefore, but that is not a planning reason. In fact, maybe in EM16, I would say that it's again is HS22.
Right.
It's
So
outside of the.
do you want to use
Yes.
HS22?
Well, I don't know. Outside of the confine of the village.
No. Okay, so you're saying the application is beyond the confines of the village,
Yes.
and that's the reason you want it reduced.
Yes, and if I can have a better reason, if the officer can help me with a reason that can be better defended, if it go to appeal, I
Well,
would like to have. But
I'm
outside
sure they'll
of-
put it in proper
Yes,
words afterwards.
But it's outside of the confine of
Yeah.
the village,
They
which
can't
is
really
against our
advise you after
policy.
proposing that it be approved. Right, do you have a second, Dan? No, you do have a second. Councillor Major, would you like to speak?
Yes, just briefly. I think most of what I want to say was covered. But I mean, very broadly speaking, I was sympathetic to the application. You have a situation here where a business has existed in harmony with the local village for a very long time, and it's clearly well run as it's looking to expand after a good few years of economic hardship. And what we've heard from the parish as well, I think from the parish representative and from the report, is that they do want Roma to stay in the village. So to me the application is an issue of design. And I thought the point that the parish chairman made about the application being inside out was quite telling. It seems entirely illogical to have an industrial part of the application encroaching so closely to a resident, and then having the houses further outside the confines of the village. So I mean, I was well before my ward partner's proposal. I was going to suggest we defer the application until we got some more details on the housing part of the application. But I'm not so sure now. That's all I'd like to say.
But you're both going to keep an open mind
Of course.
until you vote, aren't you?
Yes.
And we're recorded that you're saying that, aren't you? Because that's the new policy of members now. When I make a proposition to refuse something, you'll keep an open mind until the end of the debate. Before we go to other members, Keith wants to answer a few points that you've made.
Well, just to come back on the proposition first, Chairman. Obviously, part of the application is for industrial developments. So HS22 is effectively a housing policy, and there's also a policy EM12, which says, restricted infill villages, plan function, new businesses and industrial developments will normally be granted provided it was within the existing confines of the village. So I presume you want EM12 added on as well.
Yes.
So
So that's just on the proposition. I don't know if you want to come back on the other points yet, or
Well, probably wait to the debate.
or wait
Yes.
for the vote on the same thing.
we need to, because it's against us.
I can give.
Okay, I am wrong. You're going to get them now.
Yes.
With you.
Okay, just trying to pick up on some of the points about how Naseby's grown over the years. Most members worked around 20 years ago as members, but Naseby was actually a development village at one point, and there were various sites allocated on the edge of the village which have been built out. The status of the village was then changed to an infill village, but gave an undertaking as an authority that we would honour those planning permissions on those allocated sites. So there were 4 sites that have all now been built out. So that's how it got more houses than you might have otherwise thought, because it was a development village. In terms of the footpath that's been mentioned, we are proposing to move the footpath, but it isn't. If we can just have the original plan. The red line there, the thin red line there, shows the line of the footpath as it is now. And if you go back to the other plan, you'll just basically see that it's just been proposed to divert it around the edge of the development. So the idea is to take it along the edge of the development.
Excuse me, that's not right. The footpath actually goes to the field gate, not to the Catton Close.
Well,
No, but it's been proposed to do it this way, I've been told. That's the new
What I'm
plan.
saying is the original footpath actually runs to the field gate, it doesn't run to...
okay, well, we can look at that afterwards. Our diversion is proposed, but there's an argument there.
I'm trying to say what's on that map, but the point I'm trying to make really is in terms of what's been identified in the budget design statements as V6, which is an important view from the footplate. It's a view that's about here on the map, looking across this way, looking through this area.
Sorry, I don't understand how anybody can make a...
I'm awfully sorry, sir. I'm awfully sorry, but you can't interrupt now.
So the footpath is basically moving to that edge of the development, so it's going from there to there. So the point I'm trying to make is that the view across there is still going to be available.
Okay. Right.
In terms of the school, I've been told that the case officer has spoken to county council and they say there is a school expansion scheme in the offing. I can only pass that on. That's what I've been told. So there are no objections to environmental health on Roy's grounds. They've obviously been consulted on the application. Obviously could be conditions on hours of work and various other things to control any noise and disturbance to the neighbours. And there aren't any other statutory consultative objections, and the other point I just wanted to make was, I think in a comment I did hear Councillor Irving Swift say, something like regardless of the land supply situation. Well, you don't have that luxury, unfortunately. You do have to have regard to the 5-year housing land supply situation, and you know, Chairman, that if we don't have the 5-year housing land supply, how that affects our policies, and you have to prove demonstrable harm. And that is the difficulty that I have with trying to argue this outside the confines of the village. Because I've said to you before, all these sites coming forward now are going to be outside the village confines. That's how we're going to achieve what is required. Just saying it's outside the village confines on its own probably isn't going to bring enough. You've got to have some sort of demonstrable harm. So those are my concerns. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, we've got 2 members wishing to speak at the moment. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. Not clear where the cottage is in relation to the site. I think I saw a roof of it in one of the pictures.
It's that red, building there.
I'll make it bigger, Councillor.
Yeah, we can't find it now. No.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Right, okay, that's fine. I'm also looking at page 17, in the Parish Council Normanton, numerous complaints about vehicle speeding. Well, over the years I've seen that on many planning applications, but that's a matter for the police, surely, not Farrington, is it? I do have concerns about the splays, and it's mentioned here from the county council, so provided those splays onto the roads are adhered to, I can't find any logical reason at this moment in time to reject the application, Chairman. I would therefore propose you accept officer's advice.
We can't take that proposal at the moment because we've got another proposal not to.
Right.
But should that fail, I'm sure that will be looked at, Councillor Paul. Councillor Parker.
Thank you. Having visited the site last week and walked around the footpaths and everything like that, the only point I'd like confirmation of, please, is Catton Close. Presumably when they were built, which obviously wasn't very long ago, they must have been on the outside of the confines of the village then. So I'm sort of lost why they were built, unless things altered.
Yes, sorry through you, Chairman. They were built as exceptions, local housing exceptions outside the confine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
100% affordable housing developments are allowed outside the confines.
Okay. Other members? Councillor Patchett?
Yeah,
And Councillor Randall.
I'll just, last Tuesday, in fact, spent a very boring day at a public inquiry listening to the arguments with lawyers about the 5-year land supply. And the particular application in question was in my ward, and it was a gamble really as to whether we would have a 5-year land supply at the time of the inquiry. It's a very difficult thing to judge, but the officers are right in that we can't rely on HS22 and 24 if indeed we don't officially have a 5-year land supply. So I mean 20 houses really isn't large scale. It is very much in the form of small scale, and when you've got faced with an application of 200 in your ward, then you'll perhaps understand what large scale is. So I think that's really all I've got to say just at the time, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Patchett. Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Chairman. Safety of school children walking back and forth to school, as well as the school being oversubscribed, are a real concern for me. How is anything going to be put in place with extra lorries coming in for the school children to be, walk safely? And they're saying that there's a proposal from County Council, but there's nothing in this report to say about that. So what happens if physically the school cannot take any extra children? Does that mean they're going to have to be bussed out of the village? So that is a major concern of mine. And I would also like that if this did get approved, that there would be a restriction on lorries, timing of lorries and when deliveries can be made. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. John will answer the County Council application.
As I said, Chairman, I've been told by the case officer who spoke to the County Council, he said, quite was there was a school expansion scheme in the offing, but the details of it we don't have.
I know we can't speak. Can I point out the chair of the school governors is present at that meeting?
I'm awfully sorry, but you can't speak again. I do apologise. Right. Anybody, other speakers, or should we go to the proposal? Okay, we'll go to the proposal. We've got a proposal that the application be refused with the revised condition of what, reason of what, Keith?
Basically outside the confines of the village, but I added on policy EM12 because that relates to industrial development, because it's not just purely a housing application. That has the same clause in it.
Okay, which has been duly seconded. Are you happy to vote on that now, proposer? You can go back and say something else if you like.
As we said, the fundamental problem with that application is the way it is in front of us, and I know it will be a very difficult case for all the councillors. Now, 20 houses do not sound a lot if you have a big village, but in Nesby it is a lot. I went to the parish council in it was I think in November, and they had to deal all the water, so Nesby could not take any more. And if you read in the report, there is a problem with water in Nesby. So all in all, I would say that it's a plea from me. I think we would like to see another planning application in front of us, a bit more imaginative, with a factory that has been moved, so like that it is not in the middle of the surrounded by housing. And I think the village would welcome a revisit of that, but if it's accepted, I am happy with Mr. Surfield's reason for refusal. Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, it's not my reason.
No, it's your reason. He just suggested to you that 12 and
Mr. Surfield, it will be your reason when you do an appeal.
Okay, we've got a proposal, the application.
Apparently, Chairman, I was being asked to decide that I don't think it's particularly strong reason for refusal. I thought that might be clear really that it's just saying sites are outside the village confines. On the Daventry scale.
Quick one, Councillor Patchett, before we go.
Am I getting the idea that the design and location of the factory is an issue, in which case that would come under another different policy, wouldn't it?
Well, that hasn't been proposed.
Yes, I can propose that if you
want. It's not each way that Councillor.
Well, I'm telling you, so I know it's very difficult, but when you look at the core principle, it's about creative, the need, the design. So all that is part of the core principle on
NPPF.
But the houses, there's no design on the houses
No.
because
I think it's a factory. I think
Yes,
it's a factory.
yes,
it's purely factory.
yes.
It's okay, well, you're happy to include design then
Yes,
as well?
To be
yes,
fair again, Chairman, I don't think there's an issue on the design, so there's an issue on the location of the factory.
yes.
It's the siting of the factory.
Right.
Notwithstanding the fact it's outside the confines of the village, you don't like siting the factory, presumably in relation to residential property.
It's not
Okay. So that has been added then to the reason. Right, there's a proposal to refuse the application for the two given reasons, which has been seconded. All those that support that proposal, please show. Those against? Thank you. The application is approved. Sorry, the application.
The proposal is defeated.
The proposal is
You
failed.
like
We've got to
to-
go the other way around.
So people understand that this council likes to do the reverse. Other
Yes,
councils
we have to reverse it the other way around. I do apologise. Right. We've got a proposal that we accept officers' advice from somebody. Well, thank you, Councillor Paul. Has that been seconded? Thanks, Councillor Eden. All those in favour, please show.
This is that the application be approved.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Right.
fine.
Right, those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Casting vote, Chairman.
The application, as per officers' advice, I'm afraid. I think it's important to tell people that are here, we all represent villages, we all represent areas, many of us are parish councillors, in fact several of us are parish council chairmen, and we all know how Naseby feels. We've all had it in our own village, in our own villages, and we've all tried to protect them in our own villages, and we can't. Government legislation doesn't enable us to. We lose the appeals. So I'm saying it's not an easy job being a planning committee member. Councillor Robin Swift, quick one.
Well, first, could I record that I voted against the application? And secondly, what happened, because that I didn't know, if the public footpath is not moved?
If the what?
If the public footpath is not moved?
It's going to be a requirement for this move.
There's an application that you have to go through.
Footpath diversion order
Yes.
procedure.
Sorry?
There's a
Footpath
procedure.
diversion order procedure to which they can lodge objections.
Well, actually, strictly speaking, Chairman, Councillor Swift has a point. If the application, which has not been completed yet, does not succeed, then bearing in mind this is an outline application, then the layout of those 20 houses will be modified to meet that, because it is only an indicative layout anyway. So they may lay it out in such a way as to retain the footpath. I suspect that won't happen.
Well, may I say something? When I was in Aylesbury District Council, the Prime Minister wanted to move the footpath. At the time it was Mr. Blair. And there on the holiday, on what is the name now? Their residents were there not in Pendant Street, and that was refused.
Right. Okay, you could end up with a worse situation for the village with the footpath, let's say, going through the houses, and they wouldn't be able to enjoy the view of the open countryside because you'd be in between houses. So it's the devil in the deep blue sea. Okay, the application is approved, and we're on to the next one. Just allow a few seconds to do that. Right, the next application is 0561, it's in Crick.
Thank you, Chair. This application, DA 2014-0561, is for a front, rear and side extension with dormers to the front, rear and side. The location is 1, the Derry, Crick. The officer recommendation is to approve the application. As you will see from your committee report agenda, there's been consultation responses received. Parish Council object to the application, primarily as a result of overdevelopment of the site, inappropriate design which is not in keeping with the surrounding buildings. Councillor Attenborough raised concerns regarding overdevelopment also. In terms of neighbour responses, 4 letters of objections have been received. Comments include loss of privacy, out of character with the area, out of scale with the plot, and the overbearing and dominant impact of the proposal. 1 letter of support has also been received, and outlining that the appearance will improve the dwelling, which requires modernisation. The dwelling itself, as you can see from the pictures, is a single-storey, modern, post-war detached building in brick with tile roof and render also. This application, as is previously outlined, will have an extension to the rear, side and front of the property. As you can probably see from the site location plan, yeah, if you can just zoom in, just to get a better understanding of the context. There's a couple of different elements of the application. Taking the first element is the rear extension and dormers. It is not acknowledged that some will be overlooking the rear gardens of neighbouring properties in terms of the dormer windows. However, given the distances and the relationship to the surrounding properties, which is, for example, approximately 30 metres from the garden of number 4, it's clear that the loss of privacy will be no greater than existing to neighbouring sites. Another aspect of that application is a side extension which is considered acceptable by officers. In terms of the minor extension to the front, this will result in some alterations to the windows, including the addition of a window which will serve a non-habitable room. It's not considered there will be any additional impact in terms of overlooking or impact on privacy. The dormer to the front elevation, this is probably one of the main areas of concern that has been raised. The window-to-window distance with the neighbouring property will fall below the guidance in the SPD of 22 metres. There will be a loss, it's not only by officers, there will be a loss of privacy. However, a condition has been attached to this recommendation requiring that this is obscured place to overcome this issue. In summary, basically, officers think it's acceptable and it won't cause any additional loss of privacy.
Okay, thank you. What I should have done, of course, is to introduce this young man who you've never seen before, have you? He's got a lovely accent, and his name's John Turney, and I'm sure you'll see him again. This is the first time he's been in the planning committee, and this planning committee frightens all planning officers until you get been here as long as Keith Thursday and you get used to him. So I apologise for not introducing you. Okay. We've got 2 speakers on this. Mr. Brown is against the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Committee, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm speaking on behalf of 6 properties that oppose this planning application. 5 of those have lived in their homes for over 30 years. The applicant's land is either attached to or opposite these 6 properties, and if planning is passed, we will all suffer permanent loss of privacy. The Derry is a short single-track dead-end road with no footpaths, and the applicant's bungalow was built behind a cob wall so as to protect the privacy of the 3 cottages opposite. The other 3 properties, which are connected to his land, will be overlooked by his property if he's allowed to put the dormer windows in as per the plans. Since the applicant bought the property less than a year ago, he's completely demolished the cob wall, leaving no signs of it, and by doing so, the bungalow now overlooks the 3 cottages from the 2 existing downstairs windows, as you can see by those photographs. The drawings of the planned extension and its existing roof Chair, there are plans to put 4 dormer windows and 5 roof lights on the first floor, all of which invade the privacy of the 6 surrounding properties. You cannot tell what these windows will look like, or in fact what size they are from the drawings. But the applicant has put dormer windows into a previous property, which are huge, and a lot of people say it now looks like an eyesore. By allowing him to extend and put these dormer windows in, our lounges, bedrooms and gardens will lose the privacy we have today. The plot of land the bungalow stands in is very small, and to convert it from what has always been described as a retirement bungalow into a full-size family house is inappropriate for the size of the plot. This is not reflected in the drawings as there are no boundary lines. By allowing this to go ahead conflicts with the CRIC design statement which was adopted by Daventry District Council. This is not the first time the applicant has done this sort of thing. He's known in the village as someone who buys properties, develops them and either rents them or sells them on for personal financial gain, leaving behind the problems previously mentioned. I met with Mr Cameron, the case officer, a couple of weeks ago, and most of the points I raised, he said, it's not a planning issue. We're asking the committee today to consider the points raised from 6 families and that Creek Parish Council, that all council members made a unanimous decision to object to the application as per the letter they sent in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr Garlick is the applicant.
Good evening, Town Council. My name is John Garlick. I'm the applicant. I've got a very small bit to say. My wife and I have lived in Creek for 16 years. We are now planning for our retirement, hence the reason for the purchase of a dairy, to create a functional, practical retirement house. Having lived in the property for 8 months, we have managed to assess the property faults and our needs, which has led to the proposed design. I referred to the Crick Parish Council meeting. The Crick Parish Council meeting held on the 4th of August. I will pass the following comments. Overdevelopment. The design falls well within the Daventry District curtilage guidelines and distances between properties. Inappropriate design. In the dairy, there's an eclectic mix of properties from old to new, so what design would be appropriate? Do you want to build a thatched cottage? The site size is 480 square metres, so it's not a small site. None of the roof lines exceed the existing property roof height. Out of the interested parties, only one person, Mr Simon Wall, came and viewed our property to understand why the design had been developed and is in full agreement with my proposed development. And I'll point out, if you could show the site plan up again, please. Mr Ward lives in number 6, which is a brand new development built by one of the existing occupants, Mr and Mrs Davis, of the dairy. And this is a large house built within the past 8 years. Okay, it's a very, very nice house, but this is over-dominant in the dairy as well. And to try and change what is quite a boring 1960s, allegedly retirement bungalow, and to try and take it into the modern day future and make it a very habitable building. The drawing provided to the planning portal surely shows a scale. This was the objection made by the parish council that no scale was shown on the drawing. It was clearly obvious there, and a key to the roof lights. Should be understood that roof lights will not overlook anybody to a point of view because they're above height and they're only to let light in. You cannot see out of them. So I don't get the argument or objection. The dormers, you have to keep those to keep the roof height because the angle of the roof is only 30 degrees. Should I pull the house down and build a 5-bedroom detached property? What is appropriate? I just can't get why the members of the Derry or residents of Derry are so anti. I'm just I'm baffled. I really want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. No local member here. Members. I'll give you a proposal then, 'cause nobody wants to. Councillor.
I propose that we follow officer's advice on this. I think it will sit in the site quite well. There's no objections apart from the neighbours. And according to what you said at the bottom of page 59 and the top of page 60, the gentleman could do most of this under permitted development rights. It's just a little bit too big. But if it was a bit smaller, you could do it under permitted development rights. So I propose that this is we follow officer's advice.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a second? Councillor.
I'll second that, Chair. I think, but because it's almost within the development rights, I think we are doing over a very small detail. So I agree with officer's advice. Second the proposal.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Swift.
Just a little observation. Whenever we are in front of the committee, it's about communication, and again, you have somebody who wants to retire, enjoy his retirement, and he will have 6 neighbours that might not be very happy with him. So bridges have to be built. I feel very sorry when you are in that situation, but I agree for that. We have to go with officer advice because it would be very difficult to do otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have a proposal that's been seconded that the application be approved after officer's advice. Those in agreement, please show. That's everyone, isn't it? Those against? Okay. Thank you. The application is approved. Right, the next application is in North, and it is application 0581. That's so big we can't find it. Ah. There we are.
Thank you. This application is for a variation of Condition 2 of Planning Permission DA 2013-0578. In 2013, it got permission for conversion and extension of existing barns to create a takeaway. It's at the White Horse in Daventry Road, Norton. This application basically is to vary the condition number 2 relating to the approved plans of that initial planning permission. The approved plans state that the front doors of the takeaway were to be timber double glazed. However, the applicant has now installed white UPC doors and not timber as shown on the plans. As you will see from your committee agenda, the parish council who are here to speak today have raised a detailed objection and regards the impact on character and appearance of the development and the 2 white doors. Conservation Officer also objects to the application and considers that white UPC doors are out of keeping with the building. Just in terms of the building itself, in terms of designations and stuff, the building is not designated as a listed building. It's not located in a conservation area, and it's not subject to any Article 4 direction which would remove any permitted development that the applicant will undertake. It is noted that the building is identified in the Norton Village Design Statement in 2008 as a building of note, and as such is designated as a non-designated heritage asset. It is acknowledged that the development impacts upon the character and appearance of the building. However, whilst the presence of the UPVC windows is regrettable, it's considered that in this instance the development would not significantly harm the visual amenities of the building or local area. Therefore, taking a balanced judgment in accordance with the NPK in paragraph 135, on balance it is considered that the development is considered acceptable.
Thank you you, sir.
Thank you.
Right, one speaker, Mr Goodman, Chairman, North Parish Council.
Thank you, Chairman. The building, now known as the White Horse Public House, was originally 3 cottages dating from around 1680. In the very late 18th century, the cottages were converted and became what is now known as the White Horse. The community of Norton are very much in favour of ensuring the continued existence of its village pub. The addition of a fish and chip shop in a disused part of the building as a means of improving its chances of survival is broadly welcome. The initial application under reference 0099 involved a number of features, including, among others, the use of UPVC doors. This application was later withdrawn as a result of numerous objections, not only by Norton Parish Council, but also those of Daventry District Council's Planning Department and the Conservation Officer. A revised planning application, 0578, was subsequently approved, taking into account the objections raised in the earlier application. Specifically, this stated that the doors and windows should be of timber construction to match the existing, instead of UPVC, which had been stated on the initial application. This condition was widely applauded by Norton residents. However, contrary to the permission granted, UPVC windows and doors have been installed. Whilst the White Horse is not a listed building or situated in a conservation area, it is, in the words of your Conservation Officer, an undesignated heritage asset noted in the Norton Village Design Statement as an important village building. It is a very noticeable building on the main road through Norton and is part of a cluster of the historical village core. It has the Grade 2 listed charity cottages opposite, number 54 Daventry Road, probably the oldest house in the village, next door, and is in close proximity to All Saints Church, which is a Grade 1 listed building. As I've stated previously, I accept and support the need to develop a fish and chip shop takeaway as a means of helping the public house to survive in a climate where the nation is seeing the demise of village pubs. I do not, however, see any valid reason why this cannot be achieved in a sympathetic manner, thereby preserving essential historic features and the overall street scene. If this variation to the consent is permitted, then historic integrity of the building is lost forever. Nothing has changed which excuses the violation of the original planning consent, and the reasons for the objections to the use of UPVC doors and windows on a charming historic building are still very relevant. I'm also very much concerned that approval of this retrospective planning application will create a dangerous precedent where others may in future disregard specific planning conditions only to begin approval following a retrospective application. I therefore request on behalf of the community of Norton that this application be refused and that enforcement action is taken to ensure compliance with the original consent. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. No local member here, but
yes.
Sorry? Oh, of course you are. Yes, of course you are, local member. I do beg your pardon. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Very difficult one. Trying to get the balance to keep the pub open and to obviously increase its trade to guarantee that. I am with an open mind on this. However, it's unfortunate over the material of a door or windows that we've got this in front of us. It's an incredibly difficult one because this is the centre of the village in many respects. So I'm with an open mind, but I have to say towards the parish council and the people in the village are saying, I have to say it's difficult. If you actually, can we just bring up sort of the closest shot of the door, because it's from a distance it doesn't look too bad, but the hinges and things, it's incredibly different when you actually go to site and see it. So if I was to make a proposal at this stage, I would suggest that we would look for enforcement, personally, considering we've already gone through this once with the UPVC, turned out to wood, and then went back to the same spot.
Thank you.
Chairman, can we just interject here, because there is some case law on how you should look at these things, and you do have to look at the building as a whole, and I think that's the point really.
Okay, I'm going to make a point because I deliberately drove round Norton on the way here today because I used to be their county council and their current county council is going to speak now. And I looked at the buildings opposite and I have to say they've all got plastic doors and they're the ones that are listed.
No, those are not in actual fact.
Okay.
The listed ones are the charity cottages a little further.
In that case I beg your pardon. But certainly the buildings opposite, they have got plastic doors, several of them, plastic windows, as I drove by. I just made that comment. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm here wearing my County Council hat because Norton Parish is part of my division. I've attended several of the parish council meetings and there's been much discussion on this subject. First of all, I firmly believe that the White Horse is very much the hub of the parish. It's something that I think both the parish council and myself and other councillors want to be successful. Nobody is trying to stop it being successful. But I have to say that I'm of the firm opinion that the White Horse has a certain character. And I agree entirely with what the chairman has said, that we need to retain the character. So therefore, I fully support what he has said. So that's my position on that, and that follows much discussion on the subject. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. You want to answer a point?
Just to clarify, we're only talking about the doors today, because the windows were not, it wasn't specified that they would be PVC, so the windows are not being discussed, they're not up for discussion, it's just those doors.
Okay, got 4 speakers. Councillor Paul next.
Thank you, Chairman. The word character, to me, is as hard to define as the word sustainable. What is the character of a village? The character of a village is ever evolving. And having driven around Norton several times in recent days, you know, you can see where windows have been bricked up. In the days of window tax, you can see words that we shouldn't use now, old council houses on the edge of the village. The character is ever evolving. You've got to mix old with the new. I absolutely abhor the fact of retro planning applications. I think they're wrong. However, in this case, if I look at the building and I put an aesthetic eye on that building, I'd be more inclined, looking at the houses opposite and the 2 streets that run off of it, and in recent years I've been walking around knocking on those doors canvassing. If I could put an eye on it, if that picture there, Chairman, I would really suggest to the pub owners, and I have to declare an interest having had the odd glass in there, I would suggest to them that they painted the black doors white, and aesthetically that would match the rest of the buildings opposite, and certainly wouldn't look out of place. But I come back to the retro planning application. I do object to it, but in this case, I can't see any logical reason to enforce the order, and I would put this forward for approval, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to speak now, Councillor Chapel?
Yes, very briefly, Chairman, just to reassure the Chairman of the Parish Council that there is no danger of this establishing any sort of precedent, because every planning application is treated on its own merits.
Agreed. Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Paul and Councillor Charlton, I do. So we've got a proposal that's been seconded. Right, Councillor Eden next to speak. But you're keeping an open mind, of course, as is the custom.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman. One or two things I wanted to say have already been said, so I'm not going to repeat them. Have done a site visit, although this is another place that I go through quite regular. There are so many other houses with UPVC doors and windows that before long nobody's going to notice these. They're just going to be the same as all the other ones around it. I don't see any reason for trying to stop this. I do the same as the gentleman in front of me.
Thank you, Councillor Eden. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I used to go past this pub every day when I used to work in Northampton, and actually I've always thought that it's quite an ugly looking pub because it goes from brick to stone. You had all those ugly looking doors on the end, and I actually drove through there last week and thought, wow, this pub looks really nice. I thought these owners are really going to take care of this pub. They've got all the lovely hanging baskets outside. Those horrible black doors were gone, and now it's got white PVC doors, which I must say are better to keep clean than, it's nothing worse than seeing wooden frames with white peeling paint. So actually, I feel that it enhances the building. I then drove around the rest of the village when I got my planning papers to have a look to see what the rest of the houses were like in the village. And like you stated yourself, Chairman, that the cottages opposite, just to the left, I actually thought, I couldn't understand how they've been given permission to have UPVC, because I thought that was actually more out of character than what's been on the pub. And also the house directly opposite, that's where the windows are inset into the stonework. On the side of that, it's got a white PVC window, which did look really out of place, and it has got all white PVC at the back. So I just found that most of the village had got UPVC glazing, and I thought that actually it fitted in very well because it was inset Georgian design, the same as those cottages.
I am advised by the experts that the cottages opposite that have UPVC windows and doors didn't need planning permission to put them out. So, Councillor Irving Swift.
Well, as I can't put PVC window in my house because it's listed, I have a total aversion on PVC windows because they are not what they say they will do. Plastic is brittle and so on. When a good solid door in wood can be painted, can be mended, and I do think that this new window with the hinges and look absolutely dreadful on an old building. Now you can say it doesn't matter, but I think it does because it's beauty, and that for me, those PVC windows, they are utilitarian. They have been sold because they have been told, or the salesman said that you will never need a lick of paint, and put the carpenter out of business, who would normally live in the village. So all in all, I am against UPVC window in general. I can't say it always because otherwise it will not be good here. But I do think the chairman has a point, and I'm also amazed that the windows didn't have a restriction when a condition, whereas the doors have condition. And I think next time, if we put condition, we should put condition on windows and doors at the same time, because otherwise it looks a bit odd. And I agree, retrospective planning applications are awful. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, if that's all, we have a proposal of the application to be approved, which has been duly seconded. All those in favour, please show. 5. Those against? Sorry? 6. So the application is refused. Right, now can you give the planning reasons?
Yes, it's against the condition that was imposed.
Yes. Just to clarify,
The original condition.
The application, the details of the application didn't specify PVC.
Yeah, I think you need
No.
a bit more than that, really.
Yeah. Didn't specify it, so it could have been wood or PVC.
Presumably you don't like it, you don't like the visual appearance, it's harmful or something similar.
Just to clarify on the condition, there was an approved plans condition, which the plans basically stated was shown on the plans that there will be timber in appearance, I can't exact word, but there will be timber over the doors on the plans. And that's basically this application is seeking to scratch out that and say UPVC white windows, white doors.
And we're saying that we don't want that to happen because we believe that the original condition is the right condition.
I think what you're trying to say is you don't like the doors for the reason you don't like the doors, so you've got to give us a reason.
No, the condition on the original planning.
They've made a planning application to vary that condition.
And we're saying we don't want to vary it.
Yeah.
We don't have to give a planning application.
But you still have to give a reason.
If you're refusing, you have to give a planning reason.
Well, we're not, because there's always a valid condition already in place.
No, but the application is to vary that.
And we're saying we don't want to vary it because we made the decision. No, we made the decision in the first place.
You've got to deal with the application to vary
Listen,
it.
Chairman, we're saying that the original condition said timber, doors. Am I right?
On the original application.
On the planning application, we're saying that's what you applied for, that's what was granted.
But that's not
If
what
they
we're
put
doing.
UPVC doors in on that original one, it would have may have been refused for that reason at that time.
But we're not dealing with that application now. We're dealing with another application to vary
But this
that.
is retrospective, isn't it?
It doesn't matter.
It's an application to vary the condition.
You have to consider each application on its own merits, not on the merits of its predecessor, not on the merits of the one next door, or even on the merits of one to come. You have to consider it on the merits of this particular
Sorry, I don't understand that.
Councillor Patch.
Point of order, Chairman. You've had a proposal to approve the application and that's failed, but you haven't done it the other way around.
Sorry?
You didn't take the vote the other way around.
That is correct, actually. So we haven't, but we still need a reason.
Well, I think that's because we're trying to have a reason. If we're going to have a proposition to refuse, and both sides, we need to know why you're refusing it. Which is where I came in, really.
Yeah. So, and we need a reason to refuse it.
I'm afraid I don't understand what our lawyer solicitor is saying, because to my mind the original planning application was granted on the basis that there were timber doors. They have flouted that, and we're saying we actually want the original application to be carried through, which was approved by, I presume, by this committee. And the committee approved it because it had timber doors.
That may be a
it was
reason.
delegated, officers accepted it because it had timber doors.
That may be a reason for taking enforcement action, but what you're doing here is you are considering whether or not to refuse this particular application, DO 2014-0581, not its predecessor. So you cannot therefore give the reason for refusal based on the decision made on a previous one. You have to say what the planning justification is for refusing this application.
Because it's not what was agreed in the first instance.
No, that's not a reason.
I don't understand. I just don't understand it.
Well, what is it about black and white with respect that you don't understand? I can see an application before me which I am taking on that application's merit. I have no knowledge of the previous application or any other application. I've already said my objections to retrospective planning applications, but that's the matter of where we are. I'm taking this application in front of me. I can't see a reason to refuse it, and that's why I suggested that we approve it.
Right, we'll have one more speaker. Councillor Irving.
So on the NPPF, 12, it says concerning and enhancing the historical environment. Could that be used for a reason? For
All you need to tell me is you think they're inappropriate or they're harmful in some way to the appearance of the building. That's what I want you to say. That's what I'm trying to lead you to say. That's the reason why you want to refuse it, because you don't like when there's a reason you want to refuse it. say why you don't like it. Just saying isn't what was previously agreed.
It's not in keeping
Isn't
with
a
the
reason for refusal.
It's what I
We
said.
know it isn't what's previously agreed because that's what made the application. Doesn't mean it's different.
It's for that. It's conserving the historic structure or fabric of the building.
We still haven't got a reason.
But that is that is on the planning framework.
I think you just need to say something like, you think they're harmful and inappropriate to the appearance of the building. That's all you need to say.
Yeah,
That's good
yes.
enough reason.
As a paragraph on 3.5.
Yeah, and
It's not a listed building, Chairman.
no, it's not.
No, it's a non-designated heritage.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the difficulty now.
But I said Mr. Thirdly told us what we should say, and I think we should say. Yes, I propose. It's a proposal.
Assume it's EN42 that pursues
The design. Yes.
You're coming up for what reason now? What is EN42?
Design.
Design.
Chairman, can I ask a point of order?
Councillor Paul?
Is it the officer's job to put forward reasons, or is it the members of the committee job to put forward reasons?
It's the member's job, and it's the officer's job to tie it up into proper language, if you like.
Thank you.
So it's we said it was we don't know it's design.
Well, if you don't find a reason the other way, we'll vote the other way then.
Cecile's just given a reason.
Can I ask a quick question?
She's just told you what you wanted to hear.
I didn't hear it.
Okay.
The design.
It's inappropriate.
Design.
Presumably our materials, because we're talking
Exactly.
Right, so you're on it refused because of inappropriate design and materials.
Okay. Yes, please.
and it's harmful to the building.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Sir.
Okay, now we've got to vote the other way around, haven't we?
Can I ask a quick question?
Councillor
Seeing as you said that the houses across the road didn't have to have a planning application to change their doors and windows,
Why was this one?
Yes, they specified timber in their previous application.
so if we say no and we make a change them back to timber, there's nothing in a while to get her to change them back to this.
They could put timber in and then they could just change it without planning permission in future.
It's whether,
UPV.
yeah, it's whether it's development or not really. If they're materially changing it, then it's classed as development. If they're not materially changing it, it isn't. That's why on the houses changing the windows and doors wasn't classed as material, but it was on this building. Because of changing the external appearance. I mean, you could argue it on some houses possibly, but generally we don't go around. So many people, as you say, have changed their front doors. Try and argue it's changed the appearance of your house, but it probably hasn't anyway. It's very difficult. But on this building, obviously, it has changed because you've seen what was there before. It shows you the photo of the black doors that were there before. But you can go back, so it's changed from that to what you've just seen. And our view is that's materially altered the external appearance, so that means it needs permission.
Yeah.
With respect, Chairman, they could be black plastic doors.
Well, I'm sure that
I
will be
can't tell
argued
from
on
that
the
photo what they are.
But the point the councillor is making, if those doors were returned to wood, and then in 12 months' time they decided to just swap them over to plastic, they wouldn't need planning permission because the people across the road don't need planning permission to put theirs.
Also, I think it's that view again, is it development? Does it affect the building as a whole? And that's the kind of thing we
It's not just looking at a section of the building, you have to look at the building as a whole, and does it materially alter the appearance or affect the appearance of the building as a whole, as opposed to the section?
Could I have a question? Because we are with the planning application, should not that be an enforcement issue rather than a planning application?
No, because it's a new application. We're not enforcing another application that wasn't done to spec. This is another application.
Why aren't we enforcing the original?
Well, I mean, that will be the subject of a further report. Presumably, if you refuse this, then they've done the work, and then we'll have to look at how we can best enforce it. I mean, if it's a condition, it's a breach of condition. You can't serve a thing called a breach of condition notice against which there's no appeal. So that might be one way forward, rather than serving a formal notice, an enforcement notice.
Okay, well, we've got to move on.
Yeah.
So, you've given the reasons for refusal. Are you all in agreement, those that voted that way, that those are the reasons for it? Right, but they didn't have the reasons originally, did they?
But she's using that reason to propose refusal.
Okay, so now you're proposing that reason for refusal. You've got a seconder?
I've got written down design and materials,
Right.
harmful to the visual appearance of the building.
That's Councillor Frenchman, the seconded it. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right, those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6. Okay? Because I think I'm getting to the point where I think honestly think it's a silly argument we're getting to. And the casting vote is to approve it. I'm sorry. But after seeing all the ones that are around, I'm voting against your proposal.
You can only actually defeat the proposal to refuse.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not
That's completely true. Yeah.
So we have an impasse then, Chairman, because we voted not to approve it, we voted not to refuse it.
That's right, we voted both ways around. So, what do we do next?
Were you invited another proposal?
Yes, do you have any new proposals?
Yes.
Could I propose that it is not out of keeping with the village? If you look at the building itself there, it has evolved over several hundred years. The new structure, being the doors, are an ever-evolving part of the village, which is part of the character of villages. I therefore think it will be a futile act and very not cost-effective to enforce an enforcement order. I therefore put this proposal that we approve the application in front of us.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? You have several. Councillor Randall, Councillor Charter. Right, anybody wish to speak on that proposal? Right, all those in favour of the proposal, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, there's 6 there.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm not voting then. Right, those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The application is approved. Well, that's a new one, planning committee. We haven't had that before.
I was for it.
Right, next application is in Holcut and it's 0590.
Return to the site. It's been a planning committee before, and as you'll know, there's been a history of concern that the proposed dwelling has been too large. There's been a few withdrawn applications, and you did look at one last time that you also thought was too large and had an adverse impact on the setting of the adjacent listed building, and you refused it on those grounds. So this has now come back with a similar dwelling, but it has been reduced in terms of the thing that was giving us the main concern was the front extension in front of the listed building and adjacent to the listed building. Should have its courtesy listed rather than listed in its own right, but it is a courtesy listed building. And that now being set back behind. We'll just go back to that layout, which is. Thank you. It's now being set back behind the front of the existing dwelling on the site, just slightly behind the kink in the wall to the adjacent building. It's also showing a retaining wall there. Those of you remember was to lower the building so the ridge height would be at least the same and hopefully a little bit lower than what was proposed. In the street scene compared to the neighbouring property. So we've also in the interim allowed an extension on the back of the other property that you'll see there, the delegated powers. So it's now a similar shaped house, although as you'll see there, it is still larger than the original house in the site. That probably shows it quite well. Just to say that the next door property is called Tide Barn, although it says Hay Barn there, that must be an old name from before, but it is Tide Barn. So on the basis that they've taken off the front extension, which is giving us our biggest cause of concern, you'll see it's gone through the various issues in the reports, and we've concluded now that we're happy with it. Just to note that the parish council have also said they support it now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Keith. Two speakers. Mr. Stocker, who's amends the application.
Would you go to? Yeah, there's one. That's it. Thank you. Just 3 slides. Yeah, I'll ask when each slide needs passing forward, please. So, hello, I'm Mark Stocker from the Tide Barn, which is adjacent to the proposed development, and I'm speaking on behalf of the at least 5 households that objected to the application. Some of them are here with me tonight. I'm a little unprepared for this meeting because although my objection was received before the 15th of August deadline, the planner's report was completed before that date. I was told by the planning office yesterday that this is why none of the objectors were sent letters informing us that the application was to be reviewed at this meeting. This 5th application is actually the same house and the same location as the one rejected by this committee in April, but with the protruding garage removed. We have proposed this application on the following grounds. It's too large, too high, and too close to Ivy Farms listed buildings, and could undermine the shallow foundations of the Tyler Stables barns. It will overwhelm the Tithe Barn's small skylights, windows to the east, and the application is clearly designed to enable the future building of a garage at the front of the house, as in the application that was overwhelmingly rejected by this committee in April. So please now refer to picture 1. The proposed house now has windows which overlook the Tithe Barn garden. When the barns were converted, it was a condition of planning that these skylights be positioned, our skylights here, be positioned in such a way as to prevent overlooking Sergeant's Yard garden. We think at the very least this condition should be reciprocated. The building is located as close as possible to these buildings and as far as possible from the applicant's own house. This simply just cannot be fair. Now please picture 2. This is a view looking through Tithe and Stable barns, which are here, and 3 skylight windows to the Tithe barn can be seen here. The proposed house would produce large shadows on the east-facing skylights. And there's now a chimney which is around 2 metres away from this skylight. And now picture 3, please. This shows the proposed house that was rejected at the meeting in April. The house is the same as the house that was rejected that time, except that the garage has been removed. Whilst acknowledging that the removal of the garage goes some way to assuaging the objections of the previous applications, our concern that the house is clearly designed to enable the retrofitting of the garage at a later date. Even the entrance porch is offset to enable the garage to be fitted later. Indeed, at the parish council meeting to discuss the application, the applicant's son made it clear he wanted to ensure that this was an option open to him in the future. We would echo the comments in the planning officer's report that said the building should not be allowed significantly to increase in size in the future, and that if this planning committee is minded to approve the application, the conditions for removal of permitted future development rights should be put in place. In the applicant's own design and access statement, a great deal is made of the fact that the application now sits behind the Tithe Barn. We believe that provision should be made in order to ensure that this building line does not come under threat again in the future. Not opposed to the site being developed, but as one of at least 5 householders who actually live close to the proposed site and wrote to oppose this application, we ask that the committee give our objections due consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McClasson, applicant. Or Mrs.
Hi, I'm Mrs. McClasson. the applicant and the owner of the present house. 5. After the previous application was rejected at the planning meeting, we had a long discussion with Mary Bainham, the planning officer, to try and resolve the issues for rejection and to move forward. Yet again, Mary Bainham said, in principle, Daventry District Council had no objection to a new dwelling, but any new dwelling should be no further forward than Tide Barn next door, meaning that this would keep the street scene of Sywell Road, Holcott intact. We then returned with 3 options, had an hour-long discussion with Mary Bainham, and agreed that this particular option was the best one. We've removed the front wing of the house, moved it further back to the rear so that it now sits 1 metre behind Tide Barn, leaving Tide Barn in full view from the Sywell Road. As regards to size, my plot is 700 metres square. In her report, Mary Bainham has dealt with all of next door's objections, including shadowing and loss of light from his skylights over the landing. We feel now we have the support of Holcott Parish Council, including many letters of support from Holcott residents, the full support of the planning officer Mary Bainham, and no objections from the Highways Department. We have made every effort to learn from the previous disappointment of refusal and made amendments to satisfy. We feel we have been sympathetic to the street scene, much more than any developer would be, and have now done all we can and hope the committee recognise this and vote this application through. As I've lived in Holcott for 38 years, the last thing I would want would be to ruin the scenes of Holcott. But over the last 20 years, I have seen farmyards next to me on this side developed with 4 large houses on a plot virtually the same size as mine. The barns next door, where Mr. Stocker lives, developed into 4 dwellings with no gardens, all with no complaint from myself or my late husband Alan. I feel I'm asking for no more than has already been allowed, and this will enable me to remain in Holcott, where I have lived happily, on the site that I bought with my husband in 1976, to live there for the remainder of my life, however long it may be. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Local member, it's Brixwell's ward, isn't it? No? Ah, right. There is no local member here then. I thought it was Brixwell.
It was Brixwell.
Okay. Councillors, your comments. Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I remember this one, and I know that the garage.
At the front.
Yeah, the front of the garage. You know, we really did feel that that was spoiling the street scene. I know that the conservation officer has put a comment here that if we are minded to approve the application, they would suggest the removal of permitted development rights. Does that mean that at a later date a garage would be allowed to be built there? Would that stop that?
It would require an application.
Yeah, we'd need an application anyway, because as things stand, I mean, I say this because you know there's been huge changes to permitted development rights over the last few years. As things stand, they need permission to build a front extension. We'll put a garage in front of the house anyway, but we have actually removed PD rights under the suggested conditions. So as long as PD rights remain as they are, they need permission.
Right, thank you.
But there's nothing to stop this government or a subsequent government from saying you can build it anyway. Which, Councillor Irving Swift?
Yes, the house has been moved back and we have discussed the garage. But on the side, they have added windows. Will those overlook or not the third barn on the side?
It's the window, sorry, if you look at the internal layout, just to the upstairs. It's the window on the side, isn't it?
Yes, it's the window on the side. I think they would be better if we did not have any windows.
Is that the south side?
It's this one, it's the window on this side. You can see it's on the...
Yes.
There you go.
We had a picture.
Yeah, it's basically... It's basically the side window to bedroom set. There, on the side.
Chairman, can I point out that condition 4 says that has to be glazed with obscure glass?
Yeah.
It's the ensuite, isn't it, though, which is at the front, actually. I think it's the ensuite window that has to be obscured glass. I think the side bedroom window, if you read the report, the officer who read the report has said, then you look out of it at a 40-degree angle, looking across the side, and if you sort of leant into the window, you probably could look down into the neighbour's garden. But if you're standing back in the room, you know, the window's back there, you wait and see, that's the point you're trying to make, really.
Okay. You happy with that answer? No, you've got an answer anyway, Councillor Evans. Councillor Eden, what was you indicating earlier on?
I asked about the glazed window just now.
Okay. Any other comments?
Chairman, thank you.
Yeah.
I was just saying that I much prefer this design, and I think it's the officer should be given some credit for doing this work to get us to this position. So that's all, Chairman. And I propose that we accept officers as well.
Thank you. You have seconded. Councillor
I'll
Luke,
second
behind you.
Chairman. I think because of the conclusion states that it was refused, it's been taken back. They've worked hard to bring something that's suitable, and I think we should accept it now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have a proposal that's been seconded that the application be approved. All those in favour, please show. Those against? 9-0. The application is approved. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes a very different planning committee. See you in 3 weeks' time.